Well, I'd like to welcome you all to this panel on rethinking the trends, the challenges, the tectonic shifts that are happening for management and leadership development. In terms of trends, just quickly, I recently had a privileged and really a powerful interview with Paul Pullman, and he spoke about the, quote, shifting of the tectonic plates. Not a small step, but a giant leap from our industrial age paradigm of business to its successor. And he said something like this. He said, what we are witnessing is a shift that is all embracing. It's rapid, it's irreversible, extending to the far corners of the planet, and it's involving practically every aspect of business life. What we're witnessing is a world increasingly divided by companies that are known as part of the problem and those that are leading the solution revolution in this era of massive mobilization. And I just want to say, towards the end of our interview, he spoke about Prime and how important it is in our young leaders. And honestly, that's where my heart is at. It's with our young leaders in the cultivation of future generations. And at the personal level, I just want to say we just love Prime. I love this worldwide community. I love this session of such high purpose. And we're excited to share with you some of our thoughts about the major trends and trajectories that are going to be coming. I'm going to just quickly introduce the panelists, an incredible group, and then a little bit later I'll ask them to share more about their background, and we'll get into the questions. But quickly, on the upper left is Dan LeClair. He's CEO of the Global Business School Network, and he, formerly vice president of the AACSB. Andrew Mayne Wilson, right below him, he's chief executive of AMBA, the Association of MBAs. And then Danica Purg, she is the president of the Bled School of Management in Slovenia, and the founding president of the Central and Eastern European Management Development Association. It has 201 members from 53 countries, so a great group here. My name is David Cooperrider. I head up the Fowler Center for the Study of Business as an Agent of World Benefit. Just as a little background there, I do want to share a quick story of how we got involved with Prime and a little bit of the early story of the spirit of the earliest foundings of Prime. And it's a story of one of our first advisors that people don't know this story very well, a story about Peter Drucker and his advice as we were thinking about the creation of Prime. But at the Center for the Study of Business, we're looking at business as a force for peace in high conflict zones, business as a force for eradication of extreme poverty, business as a force for this massive transition that we have to get beyond this age of gradualism in our world. And so what happened was our specialization is large group interactive planning. And in 2004, we were invited to facilitate with our appreciative inquiry methodologies, large group methods, at that time, the largest meeting in history between the UN and business leaders. So Kofi Annan obviously opened that meeting and talked about this, putting a human face on the global economy. It was a thrill. It was a privilege to be part of that. We brought our students from the Weatherhead School of Management. And after that, we started imagining the idea that there should be something akin to the UN Global Compact, but with business schools preparing the next generation of future leaders. So we created a global forum called the Global Forum for Business as an Agent of World Benefit. The two partners were the UN Global Compact and the entire Academy of Management. And it was there that we began, it was a design session. We began designing the prototype for Prime. But prior to that, and this was shortly before he passed away, as we were preparing, I had a meeting with Peter Drucker. in his home all day long. And it was an incredible meeting. You know, Peter Drucker is the father of management thought, written more on management and leadership than anybody in history. And as we talked about this theme of business as an agent of world benefit and so on, he said, well, you know, I wrote about it many years ago. And he said, as you think about creating something for management schools, I want to challenge you. He said, I want to challenge you. He said, first of all, with three things, and I won't forget those. He said, management is a matter of world affairs. And he went on to talk about the millions of people in our management schools, our executive education programs, that come out of those programs making the billions of decisions every day about where our world is and where it's going. So the first, management is a matter of world affairs, and it should be taught that way. Secondly, he said, every single social and global issue of our day is a business opportunity in disguise, waiting for the innovation, the entrepreneurship, waiting for the pragmatism of getting things done. So, and then the third is, he said, it is time for all of us to aim higher, you know, and he really meant that. And he was often very prescient, you know, thinking about the future in terms of trends. And one of the last comments he said is that we are such an interdependent body that, you know, we cannot wreck this planet that we live on. We cannot have an economy. Business can't succeed. So anyway, I share that with you because what he was asking us to do in the earliest spirit, and we brought this into that design session for Prime, what he was asking us to do was to own our influence, own the reach, own the intergenerational reverberations, you know. And so, yeah, I think it's still true that the #1 major in the world is management in undergraduate, graduate, and then postgraduate in our executive education. So I think that's part of the spirit of this panel, is owning the impact, owning the influence, and seeing management education on a world stage. Okay, so what I'd like to do is turn to the question of trends. And Dan, I'm going to ask you to start and kick things off, and from your perspective, the Global Business School Network, well, introduce yourself a little bit more, but what are these major trends that are going to affect management education and our role in the world?
Well, thanks for that introduction, David, which is very well received. And I'll say just a couple of words about myself, but jump right into the question. I know many of you that have signed in to participate in this session, but I especially want to welcome the opportunity to sit with Andrew and Danica. I think the last time we were together, we were on your campus, Danica, for your birthday. Yes. The three of us with a photo on your beautiful campus. That's great. But I'm no stranger to the PRME community. And indeed, when I was at AACSB, I was working in the background with a woman named Anne Graham, and helping to, in some ways, create the language around the principles that ultimately became adopted. And I served for many years with Andrew and Danica and others on the steering committee, including my own stint as chair. I'll come back to some introduction to GBSN, because I suspect some of the next questions will provide an even better opportunity. But let me just point to the trends question. And I think, you know, obviously technology is a big thing on our minds at the moment for a variety of reasons. I'll just leverage the word technology to talk about three things that I think are characterizing the management education. First of all, with technology, we always think about the efficiency dimension and the access and the reach that it's creating and helping us to continue making a difference in the education of our students. But I think the underlying trend that we're not yet pointing to has to do with our efficacy at education. And I think that's really where a lot of the action is taking place at the moment. How do we leverage technology, not just to extend our reach and to continue education, but how do we do it in a way that makes us more effective as educators? Things like artificial intelligence and our ability to customize that part and to create stronger engagement between face-to-face meetings. I think a lot of that is happening as we speak. But a second dimension that I think is important to bring out is that I think technology is helping students to take charge of their own education. The days where they follow and adhere to the structures that we create, I think are disappearing. We see more and more students taking education from multiple providers, creating their own pathways, stacking their own credentials, and following their own needs in a pretty deep way. Think of it like the education equivalent of the quantified self that we're seeing in medicine and health. And I think this is a profound shift that's happened in many other industries and is just now happening in business education. The third technology